guys, welcome to my channel. My name is ReadingBear and I hope you are ready for some more stories. And today, we'll take a look at some new entitled people content. If you enjoyed my content, please don't forget to subscribe to my channel and post some bear emojis in the comment. And now, let's dive right into the stories.
The first story is titled, Karen rips off my headscarf, wants me arrested for assault, attempts to pepper spray a cop. So, this was back in college, at the local Walmart that is known for always being interesting. I have so many stories from this place. I swear this Walmart is like a Karen beacon. This story is a bit chaotic. I tried to write it as clearly as I can, but a lot was happening all at once, and while the memory is vivid, it is also quite mashed together. Some relevant info. I'm pale and at the time walked with a cane. I have a condition where my heart rate can get too high and my blood pressure can drop and I can pass out, from standing too long usually, but anxiety can bring on episodes too. I wear a headscarf on holidays and special occasions. Now there are many types and styles of headscarves. On this day I was wearing it in a style where it completely covered my head and then draped around my neck and was secured with pins. I use dressmaking pins. They're not very visible in the scarf, but they do not have anything covering their pointy ends. I make sure I place them so they will hold the fabric in place and not stick me. Since it is a holiday, I am also wearing traditional clothing, a long skirt, a white shirt with some embroidery on it, and a fabric belt. This also happened right after the 2016 election. My college town went from one Nazi group to 3 literally overnight. They would come onto campus a lot to harass us. The racists were very emboldened at that time. This was maybe a few weeks after, where stuff had calmed down a bit, but it was still pretty bad. I made the mistake of going to Walmart alone, in traditional clothing. So, I'm going around the Walmart, picking up a few things. My backpack is in the front of the cart, so I don't have extra weight on me. I'm standing at one of those aisles ends. I was trying to find something and had to look up where it was on my phone. Out of nowhere my headscarf is ripped off of my head as someone behind me yells, "Terrorist witch." Luckily the scarf only had the end around my neck, so it pulled on my neck but didn't full-on choke me. Still, this definitely activated my fight/flight response. The woman, Karen, then starts screaming as I turn around. Apparently one of the pins had stuck her when she ripped my scarf off. She is screaming that I'm a terrorist, I assaulted her, she wants the manager and the police called, etc. This couple had been down the aisle and saw it happen and ran over. The woman, Northwest, kinda threw her sweatshirt on my head and got between me and Karen. I was panicking at first but realized she was trying to help cover my head, and the man with her, NM, had also gotten between us and was yelling at the Karen. The NM grabbed my scarf back and handed it to Northwest, who handed it to me, and she took her sweatshirt and held it up around my head to sort of block people's view of my head while I tried to get my scarf back on. The Karen is still screaming, that she wants the police to arrest me for being a terrorist, for assaulting her, and, how dare he. She is digging through her purse to find pepper spray because she wants to spray me and the man? I honestly didn't even wrap my scarf properly. I wanted to get out of there as fast as possible. A nearby employee had come out of an aisle to see what was happening and ran off, to get the manager I'm assuming. The NM is yelling back at Karen and had confiscated the pepper spray from her. Karen is screaming that I'm a traitor to my own race, along with her earlier insults, and is demanding that the NM pin me to the floor so she can pepper spray me and do a citizen's arrest, and keep me there until the police and FBI arrived, since she is adamant, I'm a terrorist. So, at this point, I'm shaking and crying, my heart rate is extremely high, and I know I need to leave or I'm going to pass out. The Northwest asked if I wanted to leave, I nodded, she grabbed my backpack and the arm that I'm not holding the cane in, and she quickly walks me down the aisle and out of the store. We just left my cart where it was. She asked where my car was and I tried explaining that I'm a college student and have to wait for the bus, but I'm coughing and trying to breathe, as my heart rate is well over 180 at this point. Northwest sees this and explains that she is a nurse, and I'm clearly not okay, and asks my medical condition and what I need. I explained what it is and that I need to sit, lay down cause I'm gonna pass out. She offered me to sit in their van, which usually would obviously be a no, but we are standing in the middle of a parking lot and I'm about to pass out, and currently my brain is not getting very much oxygen. She opens this side door and I sit on the edge of the car and promptly faint. I wake up a few minutes later and she's holding my wrist in one hand, checking my pulse and looking at her watch. I mumble something so she knows I'm awake and she just keeps telling me it's okay, I'm doing fine. After I recover a bit, I sit up and realize NM is standing outside the car. I think he was trying to give me privacy. I asked for the Gatorade from my backpack and sip on that, helps with the fainting, while he explains what was going down. He says that the manager showed up with store security and he explained, over Karen screaming, what happened, and handed her pepper spray to the security guy, and that the police had been called. I look over and sure enough, there's cop cars pulled to the front of the store. NM asked if I had been hurt, if I wanted to talk to the police. Honestly, I'm scared of cops and just wanted to go home. So, I declined to talk to the police or press charges. The NM went back inside to talk to the police a bit more and I tried to fix my scarf a little better. I had lost a few pins through all this, which was kind of annoying, so I couldn't wrap it how it was earlier. The Northwest told me my heart rate had been around 200 when I passed out, and luckily it had come down again quickly because she had considered calling an ambulance. She lets me know NM is texting her and reads out to me what is going down back in the store. As it turns out, I didn't need to press charges. Karen was so infuriated that NM would help a terrorist witch to get away, she got a bit aggressive. She was yelling at the manager, security, and the police officers when NM came back in. When she saw him, she rips out her pepper spray. Apparently, they were dumb enough to give it back to her, and is screaming at him. Cop grabs her arm to stop her. She tries to pepper spray the cop, gets taken down and cuffed. Northwest is positively gleeful as she tells me about Karen getting tackled. Apparently then Karen started screaming about suing the cops, getting the FBI involved, the classic Karen stuff. I didn't get to see Karen get taken off to jail sadly. My bus pulled up and the Northwest helped me over to it. Since then, I refuse to go by myself to any store if I am wearing a headscarf, even though I live in a different area now. The next story is titled, You Believe Residents Should Get Priority Over Street Parking? Okay, no problem. I live on a cul-de-sac where I rent a back house from my landlords. There's another elderly tenant who lived inside the landlord's house. I was very close with that, we'll call good sir. I have these neighbors next to me who I had gotten along with for as long as I had lived here before the pandemic. The husband, we'll call him Mr. Chill, especially has been cool with me. My neighbors have 3 cars between them, 2 belong to Mr. Chill and the wife. We'll call her Mrs. Hypocrite, and the other car belongs to their daughter. We'll call her the Hog. When the pandemic hit, Mr. Chill's family, for reasons that didn't make sense to me, suddenly stopped parking their cars in the driveway and would park them all on the curb in front of their house, as well as the Hog taking the spot. I usually parked in more so than her parents did. Finally, after a few months of this going on, I see the Hog outside and I ask her if she wouldn't mind sharing the spot that I used to park at with me, explaining my situation with being overworked and exhausted from my job. She gives me an annoyed look and just responds by saying, I use it, I realize I'm wasting my time, tell her never mind and go inside. Not even 5 minutes later there is a knock at the door and it's good sir letting me know that the neighbors want to talk with me. Mrs. Hypocrite is standing there all pissed looking, asking me what the problem is. I explain to Mrs. Hypocrite what I said to the Hog, and she apologizes for coming off so angry and says, you know, street parking is what it is, it's first come first serve, and we're not parking to try and give anyone a hard time. The conversation goes nowhere, but we end it peacefully. About a week later I'm parked in my spot for a change and my girlfriend comes over to visit with our child. It's summertime and it's hot. Towards the evening I get a knock on the door and it's good sir. He says the neighbors want to talk and I see Mr. Chill standing right there and he just asks if my girlfriend could move her car because she's got a bunch of curbs behind her car but not enough for another car to fit. Before I can even say anything, Mrs. Hypocrite shows up out of nowhere and goes off saying, I'm sick of going back and forth about this. She is double parked and there's not enough room for another car to fit. I understand that she's your girlfriend and she's visiting, but I believe that residents should get priority parking first. It looks like you guys are trying to save the parking for yourselves. And I'm not dealing with this anymore. She needs to move her car. I'm in complete shock and have a lot I wanted to say, but I don't, and just go inside to ask my girlfriend to move. She thinks they're hypocrites and moves just because she feels like that's all they have to feel proud of in their lives. The only reason I gave in to them is just so my landlords do not get involved and risk it turning into them not wanting to renew my lease with me, otherwise I would have said something. Funny enough, even though they got pissed at my girlfriend for double parking, The hog is the queen of doing that on our cul-de-sac without Mrs. Hypocrite telling her anything. Last year in November good sir wasn't doing too well and went into hospice care, eventually passing away unfortunately. He gave me his car as a gift and a thank you for being family to him. I now had 2 cars, 2 spots, and an idea. Enter, petty, malicious compliance. Mrs. Hypocrite said that street parking is first come first serve and that residents should have priority over the parking. Well then, so be it. I only need to use 1 car and the other can just stay parked. Since I am a resident, I decided to park whichever car I am not using in the spot that I would normally park at and swap them out every 2 weeks in rotation. My girlfriend parks where good sir used to. The hog, her boyfriend, and Mrs. Hypocrite have not touched that spot since I started doing this, since one of my 2 cars is always there. As a little bonus too, Mrs. Hypocrite put one of their cars they aren't using back in the driveway, and when there's a party going on and all the parking is taken up, the spot in front of their house is sometimes open, and since, again, I am a resident and the guests have taken all the other spots, well, I guess I do need a spot to park at after all, right? Sorry Mrs. Hypocrite and / or the hog. I guess you'll just have to park around the block and take a nice walk to get to your house. I'm only following what you believe the parking rules should be. Rest in peace good sir, I miss you every single day, I'll always love you as my own family. The next story is titled, Neighbor Goes to Developer to Enforce a Rule to Protect Their View. It backfires. This story isn't me, but my girlfriend's parents. They were going to build a house in a new development in a lot that was in front of their to-be neighbors. The lot is on a hill, so it is in front of the neighbors but below them. The neighbors decided they wanted to build a 1-story rancher on the lower part of their lot, instead of building something like a 2-story on the higher side of the lot. They assumed that whoever was going to build in front of them would only build a 1-story themselves, which would keep their view unobstructed. Having a great view was apparently very important to them, and a big selling point on the lot. Her parents start to build their 2-story house on their lot, with tall, peaked gables. When the neighbors realize their view will indeed be obstructed, they offer to buy the lot off of her parents. Her parents give them the price of the lot, which had increased in value since it was originally purchased, plus the cost of the materials already purchased for the build. They waited for a response, but didn't get one, so they just continued on with their build. A month or 2 later the neighbors respond to the offer saying they'll accept it. By this time of course, more time and money has been put into the build, so her parents told them they can still buy the lot, but the price has increased. The neighbors reject the offer. In this new development, all houses are required to have a 2-foot overhang, but many of the homes haven't actually been following the rule, and the developers haven't been enforcing it. Her parents decided to, also, not follow the rule. The neighbors then go to the developer to remind them that her parents need to have 2-foot overhangs, thinking that it would decrease the pitch of the roof, meaning the gables wouldn't be so high. The developers tell her parents to make sure they have the 2-foot overhangs. Her parents go to the architect to find a way to keep the tall gables they wanted, while also having the 2-foot overhangs. The architect tells them to just raise the roof 2 feet to create the 2-foot overhang, so the angles on the roof won't be impacted at all. Her parents keep building with these new specs. The developers approach her parents to inquire about the overhangs and if their roof was impacted at all. The look on his face when her parents told him that they just raised the whole roof by 2 feet was priceless. The neighbors avoided her family the entire 5 years they lived there. The last story is titled, Investor Wants to Buy My House Way Over Market Value. Sure, no problem. TLDR. Investor offers top dollar for a shit home, without doing any due diligence, and loses big. So I'll start by saying that this story is not mine, it is my parents' next-door neighbor of 20 years. Background. My parents and their neighbor bought homes in an up-and-coming part of Florida 20 years ago, talking 1/2 acre lots with 2,500 square foot homes for like $130,000. Our neighbor's home was a little smaller than my parents', no pool, and over the 20 years the only thing done to the house was a new roof. Nothing else had been changed. Everything was still the original. Appliances, paint, AC unit, cabinets, tile and carpet. I wish I could say she took care of it and never needed to change things, but that wasn't the case. Our neighbor's house looks 20 years old. Well, she is a widow, and the house is huge for just her, so she decided to sell and take advantage of the market. She listed it for $400,000. Despite her never having put a penny into it, the house goes on a bidding war, and the top bidder is an investor from California. She offers to pay $30,000 over asking, pay the closing costs, and can do it same day. Cue malicious compliance. The investor woman had two stipulations. Our neighbor takes the house off the market immediately, and she turns over the key to her management company with the cash for the home held in escrow until the key was turned over and our neighbor's side of the paperwork done. Now our neighbor was upfront with this woman and the state of the home and asked if she wanted to have her management company come look at it first. The woman says, "No, I'm renting the house and it doesn't need to be painted. Just pull it off the market." This woman essentially bought the home for about $450,000 when it was all said and done. So, our neighbor immediately goes to the management company office with her realtor, signs her paperwork, hands over the key, and gets the check for the home. A few days later our neighbor gets a call from investor lady. She is irate. The house is in disarray. It needs a paint job as soon as possible. New appliances and flooring at the least. She demands that our neighbor paint the house. She won't take ownership of the home until that is done, to which our neighbor responds to her, "It's not my home anymore. It was signed over to you and that the check handed to me and cleared. That house is no longer my problem." This story all came about because yesterday my parents called our old neighbor. There was a for sale sign on the house again and we were confused. Our old neighbor promptly showed up and told us the story and we are all laughing hysterically because the woman has it listed for $430,000, which anyone with eyes to tour it would never pay, and even if she did get it, she'd still be losing a ton of money. Who doesn't love a story when greedy investors trying to inflate the market lose and lose big? Thanks for listening.